SNHell, a look back at Saturday Night Live with your hosts, Matt and Keith. Brought to you by Lions Den Audio Theater. Like and subscribe to Lions Den Audio Theater for more Lions Den goodness. And here are your hosts, Keith and Matt.
Saturday Night Live, Season 4, Episode 13, starring Kate Jackson. Originally aired on February 24th, 1979. Hello and welcome to SNHell. My name is Keith. With me as always, my good buddy Matt. Hello, Matt.
Hey, Keith. How you doing, buddy?
Not too bad. What's new with you?
A lot, I'm sure.
We've had a little break in recording. We got a lot done. I recently moved, and now we're getting back into the swing of it. It's been a bit since we've chatted, Matt.
It has been a bit, and I wonder if that affected how I viewed the episode.
We'll see, because all my notes were made before we took our break. And incidentally, I met with Jenn, who's sitting in as third chair, was unavailable to get together at a time with the three of us, so Jenn's comments will pop in at the end of the episode.
Going to be an interesting one.
So Kate Jackson, Charlie's Angels fame is how she's best remembered and best known at that time. She was a former NBC page, as she jokes about, and she was a tour guide at 30 Rock. After a few movies and television appearances, she got a recurring role on the popular police show The Rookies. She then shot to superstardom and fame as Sabrina on Charlie's Angels. She's actually credited with inventing the name Charlie's Angels. Whereas Farrah Fawcett is sort of the breakout star from Charlie's Angels, at that point in time, Kate Jackson was the most experienced, highest paid, and most involved in the production, almost universally seen as the best actor of all the Angels. At this point in time, she was starring in her final season of the show and was actually earlier in the year forced to give up the role in Kramer vs. Kramer that went to Meryl Streep, and wound up getting Meryl Streep an Oscar. So Jackson was ready to bail at that point in time. You hear about this every now and then about these TV stars having to give up huge movie roles and how pissed off they must be. You never know. Would Kate Jackson have been as good as Meryl Streep? Would it have been that movie? But Tom Selleck having to give up on Indiana Jones, like, does that weigh on your conscience, you know?
Selleck's the one that really jumps out. That's the name that jumps out of me when you mention that scenario. Is Selleck and Indiana Jones? I've never seen Kramer versus Kramer. Have you?
Yes. Yeah.
Is it good?
It's good. It's very good. It's certainly of its time. I'm not as big a Meryl Streep fan as I think I'm supposed to be.
Talky 70s divorce drama, right?
Yeah, custody and all that fun stuff, yeah.
Sounds very adult.
It's very much so.
The 70s had a little wave of those, huh?
Oh, a huge wave, yeah. And it's sort of after the first wave of movies like that, then they got relegated to, like, TV movies. You know, Kramer versus Kramer 5 years later would have been just a Sunday night movie on ABC.
Yeah, exactly. They kind of transitioned the format away from the cinema.
Musical guest tonight, Delbert McClinton. Did you know him at all?
Never heard of Delbert in my life. What a sad name.
The big story of tonight's episode is John Belushi. This episode is infamous in a sense for Belushi being in terrible physical condition.
Was he too messed up?
Well, yeah, and ill. One may have led into the other. In the documentary Belushi, I don't know, have you seen that? I've seen it. I thought it was great.
No, I haven't.
As Lorne Michaels says, and I have this quote down verbatim because I didn't want to paraphrase, he had been out with Rolling Stones rocker Ronnie Wood, and he was a mess.
Uh-oh.
He was coughing, he looked terrible, and his doctor said, John can't go on. And I was somewhere between rage and very little sympathy. So I said, what happens if he does it? The doctor says, well, he could die. And I said, well, what are the odds on that? And the doctor said 50-50. And I can live with those odds, Michaels continues. So by this point, Lorne Michaels is livid. Belushi, even though he did apparently legitimately have quite a bit of fluid on his lungs and such, there had been so much conflict, goofiness, overall shittiness concerning Belushi's backstage behavior that at this point, I think Michaels finally had it with everything and was willing to put him on the air despite the fact the doctor said he had a 1 in 2 chance of death.
He was done with him. Wow.
Yeah. And there's one later bit from Belushi that tells me that Lorne was ready for John to move on. Incidentally, Belushi was ready to move on. Another clip I found from Richard Belzer said during that last year he didn't want to be on Saturday Night Live anymore. He resented being in New York. He wanted to be in Hollywood, stay in L.A. and become a big star. Yeah.
Jeez. What a wild story. I wonder what the chances are that we'll survive the recording.
Yeah, now on the positive note, Kate Jackson had a wonderful experience doing the show. She was very nervous doing it, but said the cast was very supportive. Gilda in particular said, hey, you're really, really good at this, and we're glad you're here. She speaks very highly of her time doing this, and that's really nice to hear, because she did get sort of parachuted in at a very tumultuous time, if you take the Belushi stuff, and you consider how much of the show is written around Belushi.
Big time. I mean, he's the star of the show now.
Yeah. The other bit about Belushi, too, is this was Sweeps Week. Lorne Michaels really wanted, this I haven't seen a direct quote from, but Lorne Michaels wanted to book an A-list as the music talent. Belushi had become a big fan of McClinton's and demanded McClinton's or said he would walk.
Whoa. Shit.
So that's
Lorne demanded an A-list star. They did not deliver.
No, I mean, you're quite a music aficionado, and you'd never heard of Delbert McClinton.
I had never heard of him. No.
There's a trend online, and we got hit with it once anyway. When you report something or you say something, some wonderful internet denizen is quick to say, "Well, were you actually there?" That has become the thing. So, no, we weren't, Matt. Were we there?
Not yet. March, April, May, June, July. 6 more months.
Yeah, no, we weren't there for this. But I also wasn't there for D-Day. And, I'm quite sure the Normandy landings happened.
I get that sometimes. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there, but sometimes I host this game show thing monthly.
Yeah.
In our local city, and a lot of my questions can sometimes be about the 70s and the 80s, and I pull a lot of shit from there because that's just it's who I am. And I get some heat sometimes about like, well, how are they supposed to know that they were born in 1996? Fucking people can know the past.
Bill Maher has a great bit about that, about saying what the world begins with your birth, how like that is the ultimate implication of youth narcissism, that nothing began before you did. Get out of here. History is important, and it's kind of getting endangered.
Yeah, think a lot lately actually about physical media and how things just can disappear from streaming to never be seen or heard from again on the whims of somebody's stroke of a pen, just
whomever. Yeah.
They can assign something to obscurity.
And sometimes for good, sometimes for bad. So let's jump to the cold open. We have the Charlie's Angels, and this one is, of course, Kate Jackson, but Cheryl Ladd is played by Jane Curtin, and Gilda is playing the Jacqueline Smith role. And they are along with Dan Aykroyd, who is playing David Doyle, who played Bosley on Charlie's Angels, and John Belushi playing Fred Silverman. Bill Murray is voicing Charlie, and they're in an office. And, of course, if you've ever seen Charlie's Angels, we never see Charlie, we just hear him. Charlie introduces Fred Silverman. They say they all remember Freddie from ABC, and they say he's doing quite poorly. And they're sad he's doing quite poorly over at NBC. He says he's never left ABC and is working as a spy and is sabotaging NBC with shows like Hello Larry. That's joke 1 in the Hello Larry McLean Stevenson joke counter of the night. Charlie says the girls are all to get jobs at NBC. Cheryl is to go to NBC and sing on a bunch of shows. Jacqueline is to go on Battle of the Sexes, where she'll be paired up against Johnny Carson in a quick draw competition with actual bullets. And if Johnny is killed, he'll be replaced by McLean Stevenson. Ding, too. David is to get plastic surgery and to replace Tom Bosley on Happy Days. It's a Bosley joke. Kate's job is to go on SNL, which she thinks went downhill after SNL, because SNL is the only show on NBC that's doing well, and she's to encourage the cast to move on to bad primetime projects. She says she'll do it, but she wants to know where it's taped. John says it's not taped, it's live from New York, and he gives the live from New York. Incidentally, this is just a little bit of a trivia point. This is the first time since Chevy Chase has left that anyone has said live from New York 3 times in a row, and of course it's Belushi. Yeah, I thought this was a suitable opening. It's a good takeoff of Charlie's Angels. Jane's Cheryl Ladd actually steals this whole scene. The hair flip and the open mouth expression. I will say at first I thought it was Farrah Fawcett who had a slightly different hair flip and open mouth expression. The sketch was definitely a Belushi piece. If I was to not know the backstory of how not well he was, I think I would have thought he wasn't up to par. He certainly didn't seem like he was, 50% on his way to the boneyard. But his voice was weak and gravelly. The energy was low. And he was nowhere near where he'll be by the end of this show. I thought this was okay.
He was a bit low energy. Yeah, you make me want to go back and have a second look at it. I don't love the meta TV network jokes. It's a little too inside baseball for me, I think. And I didn't find it very funny. Jane was awesome. I thought she was Farrah as well, but she looked fantastic. I hate when the host is in the cold open, and I thought this was too long for a cold open, and yeah, I didn't enjoy it.
So this one is starting a sort of a show long story that we're going to follow a lot. And I mean, we've talked about the Fred Silverman stuff. This is backhanded shots at the boss. And Matt, as you said, most people probably didn't even know who Fred Silverman was. And if they did, they might not have known that NBC was in the toilet until they were told by a show on NBC. From what we're doing, looking back at the history and then seeing what roles the executives do come on to play, the Brandon Tartikoffs, the Don Ohlmeyers, this is kind of neat from that point of view. But I think at the time I would have just been like, why are they doing this?
I really think this is probably way over the head of far too many people. And I'm sure it made the writers laugh.
Oh, I think this is, and I could be wrong, but I think a lot of this is Franken. It feels so Franken to me. So we go to the intro, and we're going to see for the first time in over a year, almost a year, sorry, Andy Kaufman is back on this episode. Were you excited to see Andy?
Absolutely, I was.
And we have Father Guido Sarducci, who I'm always excited to see. Matt, you've been up and down, but actually more positive than I thought you'd be.
Yeah, one of them, was it the last one I thought was his best to date?
We're off to the monologue. Kate Jackson comes out, has a huge reaction. Gotta say it's up there with Walter Matthau's. She is obviously jazzed to be there. She seems a little nervous, but she mentioned she used to be a page and a tour guide at Rockefeller Center 10 years before, and she goes through her shtick. As she finishes, Tom Schiller enters as a tour guide guiding a tour across the stage. Tour participant Brian Doyle Murray asks her how much energy it takes to heat the building. She gives a very detailed answer. And then Jim Downey asks if a dog's mouth is really cleaner than humans. And then talent coordinator Liz Welch wonders what the capital of Maryland is. And she says Maryland doesn't have a capital. It just uses Delaware's, I think, or something like that.
Yeah, that's what she said.
Yeah. I thought this was short. It was quick. It was funny. A nice way to play with her actual history and to actually see some crew folk get a line in there. High energy. And it certainly didn't overstay its welcome. If this wasn't part of her actual real history, I would have thought this was shit. But I thought there was something cute about her actually getting to do a little bit of the interplay. I thought this was pretty cool.
Yeah, it was pretty cute. I thought when the tour came in that it was a good gimmick. And I mean, I didn't know she was a tour guide. I would have believed her if she just made it up on the spot. But yeah, it didn't overstay its welcome, that's for sure. I actually, I would never woulda, shoulda, coulda done this a sketch, but I actually thought the random questions from the group were really funny, and that there was a little more to milk there than they bothered with.
Brian Doyle Murray's was just, your typical dad on a tour asks a question.
He looked like it too. He was so funny looking.
Yeah, how much is this? He's got such a great voice, too, Brian Doyle Murray. Yeah. We're now off to Nerds and the Nurse, and this was written by Ann Beats and Rosie Schuster, of course. So Lisa is on the couch with a hot water bottle, and she looks miserable. Her mother, Enid, a.k.a. Mrs. Loopner, enters with her arm in a cast in a sling and brings a glass of Tang and some of her famous egg salad. Lisa is upset because Todd has fallen in love with Michelle, the nurse that is helping Mrs. Loopner with her broken arm. Lisa says she hasn't gotten noogies in over 2 weeks. Todd's skin has cleared up, and she refers to the nurse's breasts as 2 mountains of vanilla ice cream, whereas her own are just little maraschino cherries. Enid suspects that it's Lisa's time of the month, and Lisa confirms by saying, "I'm stricken." Enid compares the blessing/curse as the lower part of the body, making sure its plumbing is in working order. It's like Drano. Todd comes to the door. He's wearing an ascot, and he's been tanning under a sun lamp. Todd says he's sorry that Lisa's not feeling well. He says he's there because he wants to see Michelle taking the cast off because he's planning on going into medicine. Michelle then turns up, played by Kate Jackson, as a southern nurse. She makes some puns about stitches and a cast party, which Todd and Enid enjoy immensely as Lisa groans and gags. Todd takes Michelle aside and mentions that he wants to become a doctor, and he starts singing Michelle Ma Belle, the old Beatles song. He completely screws up the French, which is very funny. A heartbroken Lisa goes over to the piano and starts playing their song, Heart and Soul. When Todd invites Michelle out on a date, she says no because she has a fiancé. She suggests they can still be friends. When Michelle and Mrs. Loopner leave to go into the kitchen, and Lisa continues to play Heart and Soul, Todd starts hitting the piano keys with his butt and then starts to noogie her, and all is well. I thought this was a very good nerd sketch. It's certainly one of the most coherent and less manic editions of this. All 3 of the main characters were really on here, and what I kind of liked about this one is it changed it up a little bit. This sketch is less about the banter between Todd and Lisa and more about the banter between Lisa and Enid, banter between Todd and Kate, which is different. I thought Kate, she certainly wasn't the lead in this. I thought she did a very good job as the nurse, which was more of a supporting role.
The crowd popped for the nerds when Gilda, of course, was revealed and Bill came in. They both got a nice ovation. I have noticed, and I know I've mentioned it before, the show really relies on these successful recurring characters a little bit more than I'm personally comfortable with. But you know what? That's just kind of the SNL way. It's one of the levels of hell that they will just beat their recurring characters to death. Yes, I've been stricken. That was a great line. And I did like Bill singing the Beatles. That got a good rise out of me. But I thought this was a really long slog. And I, you know what? When you said that it was missing the mania of the previous episodes, that's what I was missing. I think because I couldn't quite put my finger on it. I know I didn't like it. And I found it kind of lifeless. And I didn't find it very funny. It was like a bad little sitcom episode, maybe a little cliche, but maybe that's kind of the point. I don't know. It didn't make me laugh and I didn't enjoy it, and I guess that's the bottom line for me.
You ready to go to Fred Silverman's office?
I mean, I guess if I have to.
Bill Murray plays Paul. He's an executive that's chatting with Fred Silverman about the new NBC schedule. He mentions that members of the NBC board of directors joked that if they didn't know any better, they'd think Fred was trying to sabotage the network. He questions moving the Today Show to 8 p.m., holding on to the lowest-ranking show Little Women, but Fred Silverman says he has a long-term plan to change it into Little Chinese Women. David Brinkley will be replaced on the news by Rip Taylor. Lorraine, as a secretary, calls in to say that Kate Jackson is there. Paul greets her at the door and wonders how things are working out at SNL before he takes off. He says he hears they're a big wigged-out bunch. Kate has pitched Hello Radner to Gilda and Mrs. Kojak to Jane. She doubts that Jane will shave her head to play Mrs. Kojak. Lorraine then calls in again to say that a scrap iron company has called wanting to buy the train from Supertrain for $50 a ton. They don't want the caboose. Silverman then pitches a show about a caboose that travels the sea. Could be a new show for McLean Stevenson. Dan enters as Tom Snyder. He wants to know why he's being moved to 10 p.m., and he's very grateful. Behind Silverman, we see on a television screen that there's another sketch beginning. So this is a continuation of what happened in the cold open. It's sort of happening real time where people are checking in with Kate as she does this show. I'm not a fan of that sort of thing, but anyway. This again is just one line after another, really bashing Fred Silverman's ideas both for NBC that haven't worked and his ones for ABC that seem to have worked. There were some funny bits in this. Certainly loved Tom Snyder coming in, but this has real vendetta vibes about it that I'm not liking.
The concept of an episode long like gag I love, and I love when it's done successfully, but this one is such a lame duck. I'm not into it. I don't get all these 70s references, and on top of it aging poorly, like I already said about the cold open, it's too much inside baseball. It was good to see Tom Snyder. I always laugh at his laugh. Holy shit, these just keep going and going when they're on, and they just seem so long, and they're just enjoying themselves too much with this. It's not fun for the audience.
Poor Fred Silverman. I was just thinking, here's a guy that is like the demon of season 4. Like, they're hitting him hard. And all he did was try to offer Gilda her own show in primetime that Lauren would produce.
What an asshole.
So the sketch we were seeing over Fred Silverman's shoulder on a monitor is called Child Psychologist. And this sketch starts with a fade-in from the monitors at Silverman's office. Bill, Gilda, and Kate are waiting in a doctor's office. So Gilda is playing her Colleen Furman catatonic character. And in this one, she's the child of Bill and Kate. And they argue if Bill and Kate's shtick in this one is they always argue over what Colleen wants to do, such as where she wants to sit, whether or not she wants to wear her sweater, and they're very concerned. So they've taken her to see Dr. Schiffman, child psychiatrist. In the office, Lorraine is revealed to be Dr. Schiffman, and not only is she a child psychiatrist, she's also a child who is a psychiatrist, with the curly hair, frilly dress, Mary Jane shoes, all that stuff. Bill thinks the whole thing is a joke, but Kate thinks it's important that they listen to what the doctor has to say. And, of course, they argue whether or not Colleen would want to hear this or not. Lorraine says a child is the best child psychiatrist because a child knows a child's mind. She shows her credentials, and she talks about her books, I'm 5 and you're 5, and now we're 6, and explains that Colleen is all vegged out. But she'd like to try something that will help draw Colleen out. And they do a non-verbal exercise that she presents as a fun game. She tells Colleen to go to a play area and find a mummy doll, a daddy doll, and a Colleen doll. So she brings back a rag doll for Mummy, a Ken doll for Dad, and a roll of tape for herself. Lorraine gets the parents to deduce that they treat Colleen like an inanimate object. Lorraine then says she needs to go to the bathroom, and they ask her to stay. So she has to cross her legs and start squirming as she gives her final summation while fighting using the bathroom. The parents are actually going through a chat and figuring things out, and Lorraine says she feels like they made progress, and she'll see them next week. After the family leaves, Lorraine calls her secretary and asks if she can take her to the bathroom. This is a silly pun, a child psychiatrist, but Lorraine was excellent. The fans of this characterization, we've seen her do this, versions of this before, like her Shirley Temple and stuff. This one, I loved the fact that she actually had the credentials to be a child psychiatrist and actually did a really, really good job. Bill, Kate, and Gilda were good as well. Gilda's Colleen character is dodgy, but she does it really well. Thought this was great.
Listen, it's fine. It's 1979. You don't get away with Gilda playing a mentally disabled child like this, I don't think. Especially how it's kind of played for laughs. Lorraine did use the word autistic, which surprised me, but she also called her vegged out, which definitely doesn't make it to TV today. I did get a good laugh when Lorraine turned around and she was a child who was a psychiatrist. That was great. Her voice is so shrill and her mannerisms were so good. It was great. I also noticed that you definitely don't get more in the 1970s than Kate's haircut. That is outrageous. I noted again that the needing to pee bit was so good. While she's dispensing some fairly legitimate psychiatric advice,
Mm.
which is really carried the sketch. Yeah, I agree with you pretty much completely. I thought this was really good.
We're now off to Delbert McClinton, blues rock musician performer, a little bit of country vibes as well. Personal favorite of John Belushi's, as mentioned. At the time, he seems to have had more success as a writer than a performer at that point in time. Emmylou Harris had a hit with his song One More Bottle of Wine about a year before this one. And he did have a couple of singles that sort of grazed the top 100 in the late 60s and 70s. He does go on to be, very influential. He had a hand in teaching John Lennon how to play blues harmonica. And will go on to win 4 Grammys and do really well in both country, blues, and I think gospel charts as well later in his career. First song he does is Movie Boxcar Blues, later covered by the Blues Brothers. Thought this was an upbeat, fun kind of country rock blues tune, if you're into that sort of thing, which I am, and I actually preferred this one to the version the Blues Brothers record. So this was pretty good for me, but I don't think you're going to feel the same way.
I'm not into that kind of thing. This guy winning a Grammy, we could win a Grammy. That's like, come on. The song, I thought it was competently played by what sounds like session musicians, kind of like Kate's hair. If you asked AI to create you a generic 70s rock song for your movie, they'd give you this. But, there's something that stuck out with me much more, and it's that this guy looks so much like Agent Hoffman from the Saw franchise that it's just distracting. It's just extremely distracting.
We are now off to Weekend Update, and this is brought to you by Quaker Oats. It's the hot cereal that destroys San Francisco, and it's the logo of the Quaker Oats man broken in half. Yasser Arafat wins the Ringo Starr lookalike contest for the second year in a row. There is a picture of a burning tractor that's said to be a Ford Pinto. Top stories this week pertain to China's invasion of Vietnam, Ayatollah Khomeini being challenged, double-digit inflation, monetary aid being cut to Afghanistan, and the weather. And Weekend Update gave their correspondent Father Guido Sarducci, the choice of which to talk about, so he chose the weather. Father Guido, of course, the gossip columnist for the Vatican newspaper and rock critic. He's in front of a big piece of Bristol board. He mentions it's gotten so cold in Rome that they've had to resort to going to Celsius. He talks about seeing UFOs or UFOs on the road to Bologna. He says it was really slick and he kind of looked like a Corvette. But they shoot you with ray guns and make you forget what you saw. So if you never saw a UFO, you probably see UFOs all the time. He got a picture of a UFO in Los Angeles when he was staying with his friend, who I think he said his name was Rainbow. He shows the picture anyway, and his friend pointed out that all the dogs were barking. He shows a picture that he has blown up, and the UFO is actually the Goodyear blimp. He did some research, and the folks at Goodyear Blimp said that the blimp was actually miles away from where he took the picture, so all UFOs have been disguising themselves as the blimp. He advises people not to take chances with Goodyear blimps. He then goes back and to report them if they see them. He goes back to the weather in Italy, and he talks about a warm front being on its way, talks about it merging with a cold front, and everything is going to get warmer or colder depending on the weather. They report that more people know that you can set flatulence on fire than Ayatollah Khomeini's name. We then get a report from Rosanna about King Tut's treasures. So Richard Federer wants to know if he should go see King Tut, or asks if she has seen King Tut. She mentions all about the Egyptians believing that in death you go to another place, and that's why they bury their belongings with them. She says because King Tut's chair is at the museum, he's walking around the afterlife with nowhere to sit. This turns into a bit about Clorette's turning her tongue green. She wonders if people ever looked under the tongue and starts describing how gross it is. And Jane goes into a diatribe about how she's supposed to be talking about King Tut, but now she's talking about tongues. Roseanne said it's always something. If it can't be one thing or it's the other. Either you can't get tickets to an exhibit or you have a green tongue. She mentions her optimistic aunt, Pollyanna Rosanna Dana, and tells a version of Aesop's sour grapes story, where a fox falls off a stepladder and goes to the afterlife where he has a stool and sour grapes. I thought this was overall a pretty weak update. I did like Guido, and I enjoyed Roseanne a bit more than usual, but as far as the straight up jokes, other than the Earthquaker oats and recognition that Yasser Arafat in some photos does look like Ringo Starr, there wasn't much to say about this one.
Absolutely brutal weekend update, carried exclusively by Father Guido Sarducci, who, again, that's 2 in a row now, really made me laugh, and I enjoy it a lot, especially the UFO stuff.
UFOs.
Him with the pictures and just wanting to talk about the weather. The weekend update was just a framing device for him. Otherwise, I thought it was a complete waste of time. I didn't even crack a smile until Guido came on.
We're now off to Andy Kaufman. So the camera pans in on a bunch of 4 guys. They're playing congas and other percussion instruments. And I thought we had an unannounced musical performance until the camera cuts and we see the congas there. And Andy Kaufman is there, where he starts singing a song about yodeling. And he starts dancing and plays the congas as well. And then goes into a bit of a conga solo. And then the 4 musicians, it looks like, I think it's traditionally African instruments, and they're kind of dressed like, one's dressed like a biker and one's dressed like a woodsman, and they start singing the yodeling song. So, like, I don't know congas. Andy Kaufman certainly seems to be really good at them, or at least gives the impression he's quite good. This was a very simple idea and not Kaufman's best. But as a comic piece, it was kind of lost on me. And then the 4 black guys start singing the yodeling song, and it just got this huge laugh from me. And I've rewatched it a few times, and I still love it. So I mean, maybe it's perfect Andy Kaufman. I don't know how to summarize it well, and talking about it's doing it no good.
You really have to experience it. You kind of have to see it, because I mean, it's like a song and dance number. But if you just watch it, the guys in the band can barely keep it together. They just wanted to start laughing. I thought he was pretty good on the drums. Yeah, he was clearly playing them and in rhythm and all that. And he looked like he was having a great time. I know he's a performer, but hell, what do I know? I love that picture from The Simpsons of Krusty just being like just a step out of spotlight, looking all sad and smoking a cigarette. Anyway, yeah, it was great. I thought it was a lot of fun. I thought the song was fun. The band was hilarious, and Andy was hilarious. There's something about whenever I see him, I always take this little 2-hour detour into reading about his death and life again.
Yeah. Have you seen I'm From Hollywood, the documentary about his foray into wrestling?
I don't think so.
It's on YouTube, the whole thing. It's well worth it.
Okay, but I didn't really like Man on the Moon very much.
I think we need a whole episode to really go into how I felt about Man on the Moon. I thoroughly enjoyed the movie, but Carrie's histrionics backstage and that friggin' Jim and Andy documentary.
Yeah, that was bad.
I walked away from that thinking that's a very sick man and is not what Andy Kaufman seemed to be. But yeah, we can go into the Man on the Moon a different time. That actually might be fun to look at as one of the movies we'll look at. Fred Silverman is in the studio by the Risers, and Andy actually walks past Garrett and Silverman talking about a show. Silverman has pitched a show called Super Limo to Garrett. It's a show with a big limousine that takes up 2 sides of the highway. And every week he drives celebrities around L.A. They like him, and maybe they can sing to him. And he mentions like Artie Johnson, Joanne Worley, Ruth Buzzy, Charles Nelson Riley. Garrett says he'll have to think about it. Kate then pops in and says she's pitched the ideas to everyone that Silverman had given to them, but none of them really seem to be into it. She tells Silverman that she really likes the people on SNL. They're all very nice and dedicated people. They're not the typical stars with limousines and swimming pools, except Belushi. Kate says she won't be going back to Charlie's Angels and Primetime. She says she wants to do something bold. Silverman then slaps her and says never say that about Primetime again. Silverman says maybe he's the one who lost his head, and thinks there just might be a place in commercial TV for creativity where shows aren't written for the lowest common denominator. he gets inspired and maybe thinks that NBC can be the network that puts these things on the air. And then he does the whole Steve Martin, Theodoric of York. Nah. This is, at this point, it's like, I don't know how Belushi's standing. Low energy. The audience seems like they couldn't hear them because there was absolutely no reaction. Nice to finally see Garrett this episode. At this point, it looks like Belushi's voice is completely effed. Any redeeming qualities to the Silverman stuff has now gone out the window. This is getting too heavy-handed, knocking the network. Like you said, too much inside baseball. I have a bit here about just the arrogance of youth and inexperience here, but I'm just going to jump past it and say that this was pretty crummy.
So what do you do if you're Garrett Morris? You show up to work and they're like, "This is what you're doing tonight." Like, what the fuck? Why did he even come in?
He's getting paid. He's getting the same as everyone else.
Yeah, whatever's in his contract, I guess.
Yeah.
But I mean, what a waste. This is a waste of time. I actually didn't even have any notes on it as I kind of look back. I didn't even write anything. It's literally just a blank, which pretty much sums up how I felt about it. I just waded it through.
We're now at Bad Cabaret for Children, written by Tom Schiller. This is, of course, hosted by Leonard Pinth Garnell. It's written by Carlos Vigno, a toy manufacturer, and is based on work by Bertolt Brecht. It's a cabaret written in Germany in the post-World War II era. Belushi comes out as the skeezy host, Rutsch Schultz. He introduces some folks and says this is all to be played on a bad stage. Bill then comes in as a legless man on a rolly board, and Garrett as a blind man, and they sing a song welcoming people to the show. Lorraine then comes up as Marlene Dietrich, sort of inspired cabaret singer. She tells kids that life is tough and the good ones always win, and tells the kids to drink some rum and join in some sin. Kate and Gilda then enter as two cigarette girls and lead a song about the kids going on a bus to school as the kids get mad and throw stuff at the stage. Leonard says, absolutely repugnant and just plain bad. He introduces the cast, which include a family of German performers, and of course Bill as our own Ronnie Baton. Considering how much I've enjoyed this series and some of their little Nazi parodies like Nazi Spies, I got more optimistic about this than I probably should have. The audio was a little off, and it was hard to make some things out. I laughed at the kids having to go on the bus, but thought it was definitely a weird ending, but that's definitely what they were going for. Yeah, I don't think this was good. I don't think I liked this that much.
It's a weird little late show sketch, that's for sure. I definitely liked it more than you. And you usually like these more than me, as I recall. And I just find they're getting weirder. I appreciate that. The cigarette girls were funny. What I assume these Hitler Youth, were we in Nazi Germany? I'm not sure what our locale is.
It's post World War II.
Lorraine was fantastic. Again, a real sketch stealer with her performance. And I like that these keep getting stranger.
This is the last appearance of Leonard Pinth Garnell during Dan Aykroyd's run. So there's going to be another Bad Art without Leonard Pinth Garnell. And then there's going to be one many years later. So, yeah, I really enjoyed this series. I mean, even this one, which I didn't love, I liked. And I mean, going back to like the Lewin Hook and all the ones we've seen, even the bad ones were a delight in their own way. So are you sad to see Leonard Pinth Garnell going, especially now that you're really starting to enjoy it?
Yeah, a little bit. I was really picking up on it. And I was liking the direction it was going in, but it was the breaks sometimes, I guess. Our
next bit is Talking About You. This was released on Delbert McClinton's Keeper of the Flame in 1979. I enjoyed it, not as much as the first one. This had a real Robert Palmer vibe to me. Very energetic piece. Really like the sax solo and some cool bass. So I did like this one.
Of course, his album is called something like Keeper of the Flame. Get out of here, dude. You know that, like I said, okay voice, competent session sounding musicians, but he's got this stage presence of, a high school debater. It's terrible. He looks like Detective Hoffman. It's just not for me. I wouldn't be like this guy or I walk. I would never.
Keeper of the Flame. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh shit.
Mr. Bill. So Mr. Bill is called, this one's called Mr. Bill Shapes Up. He's surrounded by all sorts of sweets and he's ready to pig out. Mr. Hand says that Bill and Spot seem to be gaining some weight and should not eat all those sweets. He weighs Mr. Bill, and remarkably, Bill is 190 pounds. They can't afford a gym, so they bring in Sluggo Lane to help Mr. Bill get in shape. Between Mr. Bill's screams of terror, there's a medicine ball that squashes Spot, a skipping rope that cuts some legs off. Weight squishes Mr. Bill, and a sit-up rips his body in two. He is then propelled by one of them spring stretchers, goes into a steam bath and comes out skinny, then goes in for a warm shower where he washes away. Not a bad Mr. Bill. I'm liking these more lately. I think I turned the corner when I realized that Sluggo is not the bad guy. You know, Mr. Hands is the sicko. Sluggo is nothing but a tool. So I'm starting to enjoy these.
You know, I've always liked Mr. Bill since it first started airing, but I have really taken it to places where I just shouldn't take it, because I really think it's some sort of I can't look at it now and just try to view it through like a Lynchian existential horror. The torture, the lack of empathy. I wrote a couple of things down that he said, and they're terrifying. Oh, but you know, I can't hold it. No, I don't like the steam box. Leave me alone. I don't like it. I don't like it. Leave me alone. No, I can't take it. I can't take a shower. Please stop it. No. That's terrifying. It fucks me up on a level I'm not comfortable with.
Any other context, and it's it's certainly not getting laughs, you know. We're now off to Coneheads at the Movies. This, of course, Dan Aykroyd, Tom Davis et al. Very late appearance of the Coneheads. All three enter a movie theater with large toques. Dan notes that the floors are covered with an adhesive sucrose substance. Kate and John are there as patrons. They're sitting behind the Coneheads. It's kind of hard to make John out as they talk about the movie. It's The Day the Earth Stood Still. Garrett plays a wino who is seen staring at Beldar's head. So John and Kate start smoking pot. Connie asks if the movie was what life was like for Beldar and Primat when they were kids. Kate then realizes she can't see the movie, so she asks the Coneheads to take their hats off, revealing the giant cones. John then gives Beldar a joint. Beldar pretty much sucks it down and calls it an enjoyable blend of plant fibers. Beldar then swigs from Garrett's bottle, and he leaves, and he returns with several buckets and cups of snacks. Beldar immediately starts laughing at the movie. So Connie worries that he's freaking out. Gilda, playing another patron, gets annoyed and reports Beldar to the usher. Beldar then threatens the usher that he'll reduce him to proton nodules. This one was interesting because we got to see the Coneheads outside of their house. John and Kate's audio was off really bad. This was not helped by Belushi's voice seeming rather weak this episode. And really, their weird positioning as well. They were right behind Primat's cone. This was not the greatest Coneheads. I did get some laugh at Beldar getting ripped. There wasn't much to work with this time, but there was a nice change to see them out and about. It didn't overstay its welcome, I don't think.
Yeah, fortunately short and sweet, because it didn't really do anything. There was just like, what if the Coneheads went to the movies? Let's finish the show with that. Didn't feel super thought out or anything. I mean, they're always good at it. I liked when he came back with all the snacks. Yeah, other than just enjoying seeing them, there wasn't a lot to do.
Yeah, they didn't give them a lot, and it's kind of sad because this is the last Coneheads.
Get out of here.
This is the end of the Coneheads. Yeah.
Well, shit. Wow, season 5 is going to be missing some things I'm used to.
Some new ground, yeah. They've always been a favorite of ours. Even before we started this project, we talked about the Coneheads and how enjoyable they could be. And I think, just going through our reactions to both you and I and all our third chairs, I think the Coneheads have probably stood up better than 90% of the regular characters that we've seen up to this point.
Absolutely, to this point in the show, my favorite recurring characters. Always a hit. I've never seen a dud. Even the ones that are a little weaker, like when they had like a bunch of other Coneheads on the home planet or something, whatever they were doing there. I didn't care for that so much, but it was part of a longer sketch that was at least funny for a little bit. So yeah, too bad to see them go. I always, and I don't really remember the movie super well,
Mhm.
and I will watch it again, but I'm not. I feel weird that Lorraine is not the daughter.
Yeah. I think that was hotly debated at the time. But yeah, they went with someone else. Lorraine is in it as an aunt. But yeah, we'll watch that when the time comes. I saw it when it came out. I was a teenager. I don't remember hating it. So yeah, thank you, Coneheads. Godspeed. So we are now at the good nights. Kate says good night to everyone and that she loves her husband, Andrew. Dan holds up one of the kids from the Bad Cabaret sketch, and a bunch of the other kids from that sketch join them on stage. Hello, I'm here with Jenn right now. Hello, Jenn. How you doing?
Hi, Keith. Good. How are you?
It's been a while. I mean, you were back for the at the end of season 3, but before that, I don't think we've had you on for a regular episode since season 2, season 1.
Season 1, Candace Bergen, or was it season 2? I can't remember.
That was it might have been season 2. It was season 2. Yeah, the Candace Bergen.
It was her second time hosting.
Yeah, let's see here. So first off, Kate Jackson. Are you a Charlie's Angels fan? Were you a Kate Jackson fan?
Not more than just like the pop culture of it all that came afterwards, right?
Yeah, and Delbert McClinton, is that a musical? Is that in your Spotify playlist?
No. No, I enjoyed it, but no, never heard of him before.
Okay, so cold open, we have a Charlie's Angels sketch, definitely a Belushi piece. What did you think?
The thing that made me laugh the most was definitely Jane Curtin's hair flips as she was talking, and the jabs at NBC. They came right out of the gate with those. Like they were like, we're making fun of NBC, but we're making fun of us too, so it's okay.
Yeah, equal opportunity.
Yeah.
I told you in an off-air piece about Belushi's situation. If you didn't know the story, would you have thought Belushi was off?
Not really. Like I thought he did seem kind of low energy compared to what he normally is until the children's cabaret sketch. That seemed more classic Belushi energy at that point. But I think it was almost at that point that I realized how flat he had been for the entire show otherwise.
Yeah. Monologue. Kate Jackson, she comes down for a great reaction. She's obviously jazzed to be there. She mentioned she used to be a page, and then an actual tour comes through and starts asking her goofy questions. Where were you at on this? I
thought she was really, really endearing out of the gate. Like that whole, like it had like that wholesome sort of like, I made it, I'm here, you know what I mean? And then it was a really good contrast to when the tour comes in and she goes from being like aggravated to being like, well, I guess I could answer some questions for you guys, which I thought was kind of cute. I thought it was a solid opening.
The first major sketch here is the Nerds and the Nurse. Yeah, this is your first look at the Nerds, isn't it?
Yeah, and I guess that's kind of where it lost me a little bit. Was I figured about halfway through that it must be a reoccurring characters.
Yeah. And
I also couldn't place them. Like when it first showed her and she had the hot water bottle and the glasses, like I thought they were both playing little old ladies.
Yeah.
And then right away I was like, oh no, she's a child. And then I kind of figured it out as it came on with him having the crush on the nurse and her being into him and stuff like that. They were adults, but I think I got a little bit lost. But I really enjoyed the sketch otherwise. It definitely had some good moments. It was maybe a little bit long. Some of like the women's jokes were kind of pretty scandalous at the time. Oh, it's just Mother Nature and someday you may want to use below your waist. Like it kind of gave me a chuckle. But still made me kind of think like, oh, that's not something you would see the way that would be handled on TV today. But I guess that's kind of the fun of this. It's like Drano even wrote that there and then wrote Jesus. Yeah, and Bill Murray singing Michelle like that really, especially when he did the French parts, that really cracked me up.
Yeah, I did laugh out loud when he started monkeying with the French.
Yeah.
So we now go to Fred Silverman's office. It's establishing that our cold open wasn't a cold open. This is going to run throughout the episode. Tom Snyder comes in and...
yeah, that really needed that energy, I think, at the end. I feel like it was getting kind of lost at that point, but he brought it home. It's really good. I also think Caboose Cruise definitely sounds like a 2020s reality TV show.
Oh my God, does it ever? Or something you could get like on the waterfront in either of our hometowns.
Yeah.
Next up is Child Psychiatrist. Turns out to be Lorraine, who is actually a child who is a psychiatrist.
There's some really, she actually turns out to be a very, very competent psychologist. Quite good, actually, but then she needs to pee, and that sort of distracts her.
But then she has some of her best insights.
Yeah, I know she was brilliant, but she's in a rush to finish it because she needs to go to the potty. Yeah. I watched this and I sort of thought you'd really enjoy this. I don't know.
I did.
You did.
I really did enjoy it. And as soon as she turned around, I was like, oh, child psychologist, because she's a child and she was a psychiatrist, so I guess she can write prescriptions too.
Yeah, you would have enjoyed Lorraine's Kid. I think it was in our. Remember she did the Shirley Temple thing?
Yes. Yeah. The best of series that you did. Yeah. No, I thought she was great. And I thought at that point when she had to pee, that kind of balance between like the child physicality, but then the like complex psychological things that she was spelling out at the same time, that really, really made me laugh. I thought that this was really the only sketch that Jackson really had a lot to do, although she was still a straight character in this one. I do think that she held her own with Bill Murray, who was also a straight character. Like they matched each other in timing and energy and stuff like that. So it was, I think, out of all of the sketches, this is where she got to show her chops a little bit.
I agree. Yeah. Weekend update for you, brought to you by Earthquaker Oats. So the first, is there any standalone jokes at the desk?
I find I get so watching the old weekend updates, it's hard because I get so like lost in the topical stuff that I don't understand.
Father Guido Sarducci, who was given the option of talking about a bunch of different things. Did you enjoy Father Guido?
I really did. I have no recollection of ever seeing him before, but I really did. I like that kind of nothing humor where he's not really saying anything. He's just kind of dancing around one point, and it's really, really funny. Mm-hmm. Like, for example, right at the end when he says, like, it'll be warmer or colder depending on the weather.
Yeah.
Like, stuff like that really cracks me up. I like the UFOs, or UFO as we call them in Italy. Yeah.
Love to hear what you think about Roseanne.
I don't know. I found it was kind of like I couldn't really follow it. Like she was kind of all over the place. Definitely funny and high energy, which I enjoyed. But I did find I kind of got lost in the ramblings and found myself like spacing out. And I was almost there with Jane Curtin when she had her outburst at the end. Mm-hmm.
So we're now off to a little bit by Andy Kaufman, where he comes out and to the sound of traditional African or Caribbean music, he sings about yodeling.
It was a party. Yeah, I enjoyed it very much.
Our third and final Fred Silverman bit.
I really tell that he was low energy by that point. And I think, too, this is also where I could tell that Jackson didn't have a lot of stage experience. She kept losing the light, and she kept facing him like shoulder to shoulder. So she was losing her face and her hair and stuff like that, which I think is maybe why she was underutilized throughout the show, which I was like, kind of, that makes sense if you don't have a lot of stage experience. The conversation at the beginning where he's talking about how he would drive around with celebrities and the guy's just looking at him. Again, that's a very popular theme of show right now. It's like cars with comedians, carpool karaoke. Yeah, there's a podcast called Driving Funny, I think, which is just two comedians driving around the city. It's just funny that it's like all this stuff that they're like, this was terrible TV is all like very normal TV nowadays.
Yeah. Doesn't mean it's not terrible.
No, exactly.
Our next bit is Bad Cabaret for Children. You know, you are a theater person. We met doing theater. You are a writer and a performer. You know, this is another one. Some of these really hurt for us theater folk because they're all a little too real. So what did you think of Bad Cabaret for Children?
Oh, gosh. Okay. Again, Belushi, I thought he was great in this. I don't know if he like did a line in the break or whatever, but he had good energy again. He was like good as like that gritty cabaret character. I was expecting it to be children doing cabaret, but I did think the kids in the audience were really, really cute. Whenever there was a group on stage talking together, it was like clear that they hadn't rehearsed that, and like were they even reading off of the same cue cards? I was so confused. I was like, oh, they're speaking gibberish, and then I even put it back at one point, and I was like, oh, never mind. They are saying something. They're just not saying it at the same time. Yeah, so it got kind of chaotic.
We're now off to Mr. Bill. I don't know what your experience with Mr. Bill is, but this is just another standard Mr. Bill bit. What did you think of Mr. Bill Shapes Up?
I found it really unsettling and creepy, to be honest. Like, I don't like losing weight. I don't want to do this. That kind of gave me a chuckle, but otherwise the whole time I was just like, Jesus, leave him alone. Like,
Yeah, so I'm very slowly coming to appreciate these, but the first few I watched this time around, I just didn't like.
I just find them really unsettling, aside from the fact that he's like screaming to stop throughout the whole thing. But
Last sketch of the night is the Coneheads at the Movies. Certainly you've seen the Coneheads, heard of the Coneheads, probably saw the movie. What did you think of this one?
Again, a little chaotic. I liked Dan Aykroyd. After he got high, it was really, really funny.
Yeah.
And I laughed when she asked them to take off their hats.
Yeah.
That was a good gag. And they were like, oh, sure.
Worst disguise ever.
Yeah.
So what did you think of Kate Jackson as a host?
I found she didn't really have much to do. Mm-hmm. Even like, okay, in that first sketch, the nerds one, where the nerds and the nurse, she came out with a Southern accent, and I do feel like that was her just being like, I'll have to do something, you know?
That's exactly what I wrote in my notes.
Oh, really? Yeah. Might as well be Southern, I guess. I have nothing else to do. And I did think that they were just underusing her. She was always the straight character, or herself, or the wife, or actually as the wife, I thought was like the highlight of the episode for her.
Solid supporting player throughout. How did you feel about the music?
I liked it. Like I found this episode in general very much felt like a snippet of its time between the music and the host. And I know nothing about that artist. I thought his vocals were great. I thought the band was tight. The energy was good, and it did feel very of that time period.
Yeah. So what was your worst sketch of the night? And I broke up them Fred Silverman things into 3 different segments.
You know what? It might be those.
Do you have one you liked least?
Probably the last one.
Yeah, I think you're right there.
Yeah. It seemed like an easy out, but maybe that's just what they had the energy for that night.
What was your best sketch of the night?
The child psychiatrist.
That was also my pick. Did you have a star of the night?
Strangely enough, because he's not used that much in the episode, and maybe even more so for that reason, but Bill Murray.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah, I thought he was great. I actually liked him in the first with the NBC sketches, the Tank Network sketches. I really liked him in the first one. I thought he was such a good straight man, and even at the end when he was like, oh, that's a wigged out group, I don't know if you're kidding me or what, like it was just so like endearing, and you can kind of picture him as like the nerd at the network who's just like, oh, you're the boss, I guess you get it. Like he worked really, really well.
Can't go wrong. Yeah, I went with Lorraine, but Bill was my second.
Yeah.
Close, And okay, so overall rating of 10 on this episode.
I gave it a 6. Yeah, just a couple of really good laugh out loud moments, but otherwise I did find it like not their best.
So Jenn, thanks very much for joining me tonight. We'll be editing this into the episode with Matt and I. Unfortunately, Matt's schedule got wild and wacky all of a sudden. But yeah, thanks so much, and hopefully we'll have you back before the end of the season.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'd be glad to be back anytime.
Great to talk to you soon. And now back to me and Matt.
So let's rate this episode, Matt. So the host, I thought Kate Jackson was good. Didn't have a lot of chances to step out of her norm. Her whole night, I thought, was hampered by this running bit with Fred Silverman. 3 segments where she sort of had to reset to play herself in scenes with a less than perfect John Belushi.
Yeah, I barely noticed her, which is not necessarily, sometimes that's a good thing when somebody can blend in with the cast, but this is not like that. Anyone can host style. Just put them in the background, and because we got our own shit to do.
The music, I thought it was a very good fit in a way. It's not going to be overly memorable for me, but I enjoyed both performances.
This guy doesn't survive MTV. He's getting Christopher crossed out once MTV comes around, because he looks like Detective Hoffman. Like, that guy doesn't look like a pop star.
What was the worst sketch of the night?
I actually thought there was an entire series of duds tonight, but I think the one I laughed at the least, probably the nerds. I really did not like the nerd sketch. Like I said, I'm struggling with the overuse of recurring characters, and while it did have a couple of chuckles in it, it was different, and it was different in a way that I personally did not care for.
Okay, and for the record, Jenn and I both picked the third Fred Silverman, the Under the Bleachers one.
Oh, frig! You know what? I forgot those. Can I change my vote to those?
Absolutely can, yeah.
Okay, because I kind of blacked them out as like, because they didn't even feel like sketches. You know, they were like little bumpers between sketches. So I almost didn't acknowledge them as part of the show and forgot.
8-minute long bumpers.
Yeah, right. Like holy shit. Yeah. But at the same time, I did black them out. Yeah, or I blacked out. Either way, I want to change my vote to that Fred Silverman shit.
Okay, which one? The first one, like the cold open?
I have to pick one.
Yeah, just because. Yeah, we went with the third one, which was under the bleachers.
Oh, that was bad. Yeah, mark me down. That's 3 strikes throughout.
And that's a sweep. What was the best, Matt?
My favorite was the child that is a psychiatrist. I thought Lorraine was excellent, and I thought it was super clever, really carried by her performance, and it was just really funny that she was a psychiatrist.
And another sweep. And who was your star of the night?
A surprise to no one who has listened to 2 seconds of me this episode, Lorraine Newman. I thought she killed it as the psychiatrist, and I really liked her in the Cabaret sketch. And she was probably my favorite part of the Coneheads sketch too, actually, when she was like, "Daddy, be cool." That was really funny.
I think even if Lorraine had just done 2 of the 3 things she did, I think she still would have, like, her big 3, of course, tonight being child psychiatrist Connie Conehead and the cabaret singer. I think even with just 2 of those, she would have won it for me, because it was definitely a quality night for her. You know, she might not have been all over the place, but my goodness, she nailed those overall. So at the end of this episode, I asked, what did I just see? Not in a thematic way, but a thought that really I'd forgotten a lot of the episode. There was a lot of inside baseball, as you've said. Belushi as Silverman. That stuff was just plain bad. You know, the hate this show has for Silverman has so far given us about 8 segments of this year, and none have been particularly funny. And, you know, you're talking to somebody who is familiar with Fred Silverman and knows the history. That's definitely a star executive, but do audiences really care enough about a star executive to take up so much airtime, you know, with variations on the same joke? And like I said, a lot of them are at poor McLean Stevenson's expense. Really weighed the episode down, broke the flow, killed the energy. I don't know how much better it would have been if Belushi was at 100%, but based on the other Fred Silvermans, I don't think it would have been much better. We did get some good music I enjoyed. I did enjoy the nerds. Lorraine had a great night. Bill had a great night. Jane had a good night. Didn't see much of Garrett. Aykroyd was his usual self. Week update and a good bit from Andy Kaufman. But that being said, despite the few things that I did like, and we're also losing Pinth Garnell and the Coneheads, 2 of my favorites that I think are both kind of going out more with a whimper than a bang. You know, taking it from this side of history, I'm giving it a generous 5 out of 10, and I think that's very generous because there was some real missteps on this episode.
I tend to agree with most of what you just said. It was a mess. It did not flow well at all. Those network sketches felt like they were interrupting the show, took away from the host, and just a lot of shit to sit through. And I didn't like. And there's a couple of things I just didn't like as much as you. Yeah, Lorraine, I really thought carried the whole thing on her back. Without her, this is an absolute train wreck that gets probably my lowest score ever. I got to agree. I'm gonna give it a 5 too.
Okay, so Matt, you gave it a 5. I gave it a 5. Our good buddy Jenn gave it a 6. That averages this one out at a 5.3, which is still not our least favorite of the year, but certainly not one of the tops either. The folks over at the Internet Movie Database liked this more than we did, but not much. They only gave it a 6.5, which for that folk seems to be ridiculously low. And they ranked this as 18 out of 20 of the year. So this is not a well-loved episode.
Yeah, nor should it be. It was a pain in the ass.
Despite all that, I didn't find it a slog. Like, it was a mess, but it was a quick mess.
Yeah, okay. I'll give you that.
Do you know who our host is next week?
Nope.
We have Gary Busey. Fan of Busey?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
I shouldn't say of course, but yes.
And his musical guest is kind of a mix. We have Eubie Blake, We have Gregory Hines doing a thing together. Rick Danko and Paul Butterfield doing something as well. So what's interesting here is Eubie Blake is 92 years old as a musical guest, which must excite you.
Oh, yes. I love hot, young, upcoming talent like Eubie Blake.
A cold, old, outgoing talent. So Matt and I will be back in about a week with Gary Busey and several musical acts. But until then, we'll be consuming bad art under the moons of Meepzorp here in SNHell.